जय हिंद, जय भारत एंड वेलकम टू डेफ टॉक्स। दिस इज आदि अचिंत। आइए समझें जियोपॉलिटिक्स को एक भारतीय नजरिए से।
So India has a mindset where it hits, it punches below its weight. We have to punch not above our weight. We have to punch not below our weight. We have to increase our weight and punch the post.
ये हमारा सिद्धांत है। हम घर में घुस के मारेंगे।
You know, victims of terrorism do not sit together with perpetrators of terrorism to discuss terrorism.
Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat and welcome to Dev Talks. I have with me, and I have the honor of actually having with me, Mr. Vikram Sood. Sir, good afternoon. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on the platform, and trust you me, we learn a lot. Last time our podcast did really well, and I'm so happy that we are going to sit and talk. It's not about the views, it's not about anything, it's about the content, and it's about the feedback that one gets from people. And that was really, really amazing. So thank you so much for the last time, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me over on your show. It's a delight.
Sir, let me start with yes, sir. Thank you. Let me start with something, sir. There's obviously this is the time of war. Mr. Modi had said that this is not the era of war,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I've kind of extended that a little bit, and I want your views on it before we kind of dig into it. Mr. Modi said this is not an era of war, but I think what he didn't say that we must prepare for it.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think every nation which wants to be a nation of any worth and significance and a role has to prepare for two things: hope for peace and well-being, but prepare for war if required. The two must go simultaneously. You can't develop either overnight. Your capacity to protect your interests depends on how your own systems have been put into place, keeping in mind the situation around you. I mean, what kind of threats the Americans face or think they face varies considerably from the threats that we think we are facing now or will be facing in the future. We have to be prepared for the future, not yesterday. So, unless we sit down and work amongst ourselves, whoever the leaders, the policymakers, the think tankers, the strategists, I think I've said it before on your show, maybe, that you have to prepare for the future. You have to prepare for 20 years now or 30 years now, whatever period you want to decide. And if you don't do it now, it will not work in 47 or 45.
Yeah.
It's not a switch on, switch off situation. So, and as we grow stronger, as we grow bigger in stature, there will be more envy, there will be more opposition to us.
When we see what's happening in Europe today, sir, I mean, a lot of people have started kind of giving up on Europe. It's a lost cause mini fund, so as to say. People have said that people are now saying that West Asia is being propagated to kind of get rid of Europe.
Well, in a way, yes. They now also say that East Europe is the place to go to if you want to go to Europe. West Europe is done with. And this war in the Middle East, or look, for instance, Russia, Ukraine has already gone into the background.
Yep.
Huh? You'll have November elections. Till then, nothing will happen to change the situation. Thereafter, you will see a change in the situation, whoever becomes president of the United States. I think that's how they will do it. And also, wherever the Americans have played in the past, they've not been a thumping success. And I don't see that happening again, except in the case of Israel, where it is a little different. This, the, the, the goals are high, the risks are very high, and it could go anyway. It depends on how each power now reacts to the next stage.
Mhm.
But so far as I can see, the Israelis are pretty determined.
How do you kind of look at the situation in the Middle East, sir? Because right now, the Israelis, as you said, are pretty determined to I won't say expand the war, but to make themselves safer.
Yeah.
A lot of
The-
people have kind of
If,
mistook that as warmongering, but I think it's an effort to make yourself safer.
if
To
your if your if your main opponent keeps saying, "I will knock you out, I will annihilate you, I'll fight you to the last Jew," what do you expect to do? You are 9 million surrounded by 200 million, 400 million around you. Not all may be your enemies to the same degree, but the three main components openly say that. And people compare uh, October 7 to America's 9/11. That's not a correct comparison. 3,000 people died in a population of 240 million then. Maybe that is how I look at it.
approximately. Hmm.
Approximately. Huh? Here, 1,200 died in a population of 9 million. So you calculate and you see that 12, if you want to compare, then the casualties in the United States should have been 36,000, 12 times more. Can anyway, now that is how Israel would see it. You get me? Now, if in a small country that many have died, then you turn around and say you're killing civilians,
Hmm.
but you're using the hospitals as arsenal. Underneath the hospitals, you have dug caves, have put your armament there, your explosives there. You've used that place not, and you're using civilians as a safeguard. So how do you blame the Israelis for that when they've been told that we're coming to kill you? And this was an act of pure terror, revenge, everything else. It wasn't a war. War has some different kinds of rules. This is killing of, and the ratio of killing in any war, I'm told the casualties of the civilians are 9 times more than the army, armed forces, 9 or 8 or whatever. In this case, it's been 2 times the casualties. So it's not as if they've not been careful. And if you say intelligence failure, then how did they manage to do the pagers? Hezbollah, they've been, and it was started 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. अभी तो नहीं शुरू किया ना, after this, they started before. They were
Yeah.
preparing to. So this war has to, I don't see how it will end. That is the problem. If you're
Hmm.
not going to accept that, if you're all going to say that it is an illegitimate presence, how do you change it? How did America get populated? By outsiders. What happened to the indigenous population? Are you going to go back to that? So this is a matter of history. Historically, over time, new waves of population changes take place. Okay, this one was given to the Israeli Jews by imperial diktat. They didn't move in on their own. They were given the land. I mean, maybe the land didn't belong to the imperials, but they gave it. Now it's history. You have to accept it. This is a matter of history. It's 70, 80 years old now.
You know, the point that I'm kind of confused and I'm not able to uh, put into perspective is that the Americans today have, they know that they don't have the kind of control they had on the world before,
Hmm.
but the exercise of their politics is as per that itself. A realistic foreign policy, a realistic policy of geopolitics would tell you, listen, I got to change my game a little bit.
Hmm.
uh, do you see that realism coming into America, which, and I'm very proud to say this today because I analyze geopolitics of India quite a bit. I'm very proud to say that India is actually playing realpolitik.
Hmm.
The US, I don't know what they're kind of trying to do. Do
I
they
don't.
even have the faintest realization of where they stand today, sir?
I can't see that. I can't see that. They still believe that if the Prime Minister of India goes to meet the Prime Minister of Russia, you can't take offense to that. And if you say it and he still goes and meets, then these are little things that say, okay, so what are you going to do about it?
Hmm.
You can't buy oil from them. I mean, you're imposing restrictions you can't actually carry out. So people
Writing
learn.
checks in cash.
हाँ, ठीक है अपना you can say what you like, I'll do what I like. What suits me. It's in my interest, I will do it. This is a lesson we have learned from the Americans. Keep your interests first. That's real politics. Don't go by statements and evaluations and pronunciations and sanctimonious statements. It doesn't work. We're a peace living country. We don't attack anybody. We've never sent out forces. Nobody's impressed. How well do you safeguard your interests is the important thing. If you
That's
can't
true.
do that, then they take you for granted. And more these things will happen to us in the future. We can't just ignore it. We will have to take a stand. And
When Prime Minister Modi went to USA, they brought out their favorite card of Khalistanis. In my mind, they've got only two cards left. One is the Khalistani, and then second is that what religious freedom nonsense that they
yeah,
keep
that's
out.
they keep floating that now and then.
Yeah.
That-
So,
yeah.
what do you think? I mean, this is the first time India gave such a response. Trust you me, if, I don't know if they actually read it, but the response was very hard.
Mm.
In diplomatic sense, it was I think one of
Yeah.
the hardest responses India has given apart from anybody apart from Pakistan.
Yeah.
How do you see our positioning now that we've kind of said, listen, just shut up? That's basically what you said
Yeah.
in diplomatic language.
You know,
What do you think is the future of India US, sir?
India US will continue like this, hot and cold. They don't. I think there is some kind of an unrealistic fear in their minds. Okay, these fellows are now going to be number three in the pecking order as far as the economy is concerned. They're going to compete for the same resources. I've said this so many times, but I don't even know whether I'm repeating what I said to you last time. That they are so concerned with their position on the globe that anything is seen as a threat. You want to see the largest democracy in numbers as your threat, and you want to embrace all kinds of dictators. You see how nervous they got when Imran Khan said that I'm neutral between Russia and Ukraine. Okay. The State Department message to headquarters was They are being aggressively neutral. Hmm.
Aggressively neutral.
Yes. So Imran Khan was knocked out. Okay. There the army could arrange these things. यहाँ पे कौन करेगा? कोई नहीं करेगा ना. What happened to Sheikh Hasina? There is this huge thing which has come out about how the Americans had planned and worked all this out. Imagine a group in Bengal, Bangladesh, sending a report to headquarters saying that we made so much preparations, etc., to destabilize the government, or something to that effect. International Republican Institute or something, part of the National Endowment for Democracy, part of the government, part of the CIA, etc. So they are onto that game all the time. The idea of being the Supremo hasn't gone out of the system, and I don't know how it will ever be achieved. But nobody is out to defeat America. I mean, America has so many other good aspects to itself, useful aspects. I mean, it's a great country in many ways. So, but why do you want to have this all the time? This is actually something. This is a takeout from the Second World War.
Hmm.
वहीं पे शुरू हुआ था. When George Kennan said that we should have an organization for political warfare, global political warfare. Mane setting up a system in the CIA which would act to destabilize, dethrone, remove through sabotage, through guerrilla warfare if necessary, political movements, economic movements, trade union, everything put together, so that you have a government of your liking in that country. Italy में क्या हुआ था 48 में?
Yeah, the communists were
First
thrown
one,
out.
first one was overthrown. I mean, they had their candidate winning the elections, the Americans, against the communist candidate, and they are thrown in everything. Money was looted through churches, through trade unions, and I believe, according to Miles Copeland, who was one of the founding members of the CIA, it said that, but for the mafia, we would not have won. Okay. तो गेम इतना बड़ा है. Now, how do you, if you have 800 military bases, you have that kind of bases outside, you're imagining that kind of a threat now. You're imagining
Everybody is a threat. Then.
yeah, everybody's a threat. So you can't live in a world like this. And then there is what they are now calling the deep state, which is financial controls all over. It's BlackRock and state security and one more.
BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street.
Yeah, ये तीन हैं. Control all the wealth in the world, or the Western world.
Funnily speaking, they play on both the sides.
Yeah.
They're backing Trump also and they're backing Kamala also. So
So that's a typical thing. Whoever wins they should be on their side.
that's it. I mean, it's funny the kind of donations. When you look at their donations, you're like, oh God, they're the same people. Like what the hell is this?
I think globally the West has to realize that as things that they've given us the technology which we're making use of. They've given us the wherewithal. We know how the other world lives, but previously nobody knew. We only saw something on the BBC and CNN, and they were very happy with that. But now anybody can see what's going on and say what's going on. It's the democratization of free speech. Sometimes we dislike it immensely, but that's how it is. So there is a rising self-esteem in at least in our country. We are now able to stand up. I mean, the statement that you just referred to, the Foreign Office statement, is a clear indication of how we're thinking now. That we are not going to step back when it is not in my interest to step back.
Hmm. When you look at Bangladesh itself, sir, since you mentioned that, let's kind of focus on that, and then we can kind of go around. Bangladesh was a. I'm not sure they've done what they've done, right?
Mm.
And there's a literal genocide happening there. I'm in touch with a lot of Bangladeshis
Mm-hmm.
who tell me the reality of what's actually
Mm.
uh, what's happening on the ground.
Mm.
Um, I've not seen a single regime change operation done by the US that has actually worked. Not a
Mm.
single one. What makes them think that this will? And you look at people from the Brookings Institute, touting all sorts of nonsense. As a matter of fact, somebody pointed a finger at me without pointing a finger at me and said, people who think that the regime change was done by the US, backed by the Clintons and Obamas, and they're making 1 hour videos on it, need to get their heads checked. I was, first guy to say it on the 5th of August. This is the Americans. I had all the stuff ready. I've been saying it for a year that this is going to happen.
Yeah, it's been there all the time. You don't, and they have said in the formation of that 1948 April, I think, or June decision, that the action should be such that the State Department, the government has, what is this, has deniability. Plausible deniability is an expression which has commonly been used. That they have got involved. This is all अपने आप से हो रहा है. People are coming out onto the streets on their own, and they are participating in a rebellion against this country, against their government. But it's all organized. The spark may not be there, or originating from them, but you have the means, this machinery to take advantage and swing it. You know that Tunisian fruit vendor who committed suicide, and that started it.
That's not suicide, by the way. Even the guy in Bangladesh, Abu Sayyaf,
Uh-huh.
was not shot by the police. He was actually killed by. I have his medical report, by the way. I have his postmortem report, which
Uh-huh.
very clearly states blunt force trauma. There's no gunshot wounds.
Okay.
He was killed by the people that he thought were his friends. They took him on a corner, beat the daylights out of him, killed him, and then touted his body as if they literally drilled a hole in his body and said, "Here is the bullet wound." But the postmortem report, I have it from the hospital, right? Somebody from that particular hospital sent it to me.
Mm.
Say, "Sir, no, this is a blunt force trauma."
So that's how they play the game. You have a situation, take advantage, play it up. You had the Arab Spring after that, Tahrir Square, etc., etc. It didn't work in Syria, therefore Syria became the bad boy
Yeah.
of the Middle East, and it still has troops from all countries parked there. The other thing about the US is that how are they going to handle China? Burma तो बांग्लादेश तो ऐसे चलेगा कुछ time. There will be more upheavals. They haven't got a government in place really. They've got just one Nobel laureate sitting there, and
We know how they work, sir. You got
and
enough experience of Nobel laureates with us.
and he's they'll get some funds, they'll get some organized. But I don't understand still why Bangladesh. It wasn't a threat to them.
No, they wanted a lily pad, sir. If you look at the map
Yeah,
of
that
the
St.
US bases
Martin's
around the
and
world,
so
yeah,
on.
yeah, they want a lily pad, small little lily pad,
Uh,
which is a mini base, so that they
and the
can
lady,
keep some stuff
and the
there.
lady said no, so she had to go.
And there's a history, sir. Yahya Khan had said yes. And I'm sure you would know about it. Yahya Khan had said yes. Um, when Mujibur came, he said no.
Then I think Ziaur Rahman said yes.
No, Yahya had also said yes. Riyaul Rahman said yes. When Mujib came, he said no.
No.
1973. It was printed in the Organizer 1973. I have the original newspaper with me. He said, no, I'm not doing this. And that's when it started. They hated the country right from then.
But they couldn't make it during the 2 terms of BNP either.
Oh, their opinion of the BNP. I sent you that document. I'm sure you read
No,
their opinion on the BNP as well.
yeah. They say BNP
It's
is
useless.
also not an alternative to
Yeah.
Sheikh Hasina. So what do they have? They'll
That's by
continue.
the way, that's what they say about our this thing also. They don't like the opposition because they find it to be useless.
Yeah, yeah. They find the present not uncomfortable to be uncomfortable because they don't have a successor
Option.
in mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So when you see you said China, sir. China is an interesting case. When you look at China, it's kind of reducing, if I may. And with
Yeah.
these recent events happening around China's, what do you think China's future in the Middle East is like?
They tried to be the big dads with Iran and Saudi Arabia and try and make them come to an agreement. But I don't know whether it's really taken off at all, because the Saudis have not said anything on this conflict, have they? Nothing. They've not made any
Only thing
comment.
recently, the crown prince said that we would want a state of Palestine to be formed for good relations with Israel, with the capital in East Jerusalem. He
Yeah.
didn't say a word of. He didn't say a word about Gaza.
Mm. Yeah, you have to make some statement, so you make a statement that will never really be acted upon.
Hmm.
No, the Chinese are, I think they have a problem economically at home. It's not doing too well. That's what that's what I gather from what I've read. And for them to have an economic crisis is a huge thing, because if it leads to any kind of unrest, that will unnerve the Chinese like nothing else. I mean, in India, you're used to having demonstrations every other day for something or the other. But in China, you don't. So how are they going to handle those situations? Will it be another Tiananmen?
Sort
Who
of.
would say,
Okay.
huh?
What about
Or,
Pakistan, sir? I mean, the Chinese influence within Pakistan. Recent
so
events with Karachi
so
right now.
after now they're dying for a cause also. They died in Karachi the other day, two Chinese, in a suicide attack. The Pashtuns are getting very active and head up. The Taliban are making statements about Pakistan like the way we used to talk about Pakistan. So, so what is the scope for Pakistan? And the poor prime minister goes in to the UN and same old speeches, same old allegations. Pakistan is in a mess, but I don't think anybody, the West, will let it go down. It's a useful thing to have to bother India with.
That's true. I have a theory about Pakistan, and I've said this before on the channel. I wanted your thoughts on this. Is that the Americans have realized the Pakistani Punjabi Muslim is now quite useless because he eats a lot of money and does nothing.
Yeah,
Separate Balochistan. That's what you need. You need a base, you need a port, and you need access.
yeah. That is what the British Empire also wanted. When they were talking about division of India, some of the correspondence between Delhi, New Delhi, and India office in London did say that if we cannot divide India, the northwest frontier and Balochistan are very important for us. we should at least have a hold on Balochistan. This is
Okay, that's
1938, 39, that period, when they're thinking of a division, or maybe it's 1940. When was Lord Wavell there? I think it was during his time. This statement was made, this message was sent. So, Balochistan is the real thing for them. It's not for the oil so much as access. And as a guardian for the Gulf. And those days it used to be Russia, of course, as a bulwark against Russia. That may not be so important now, but Balochistan remains an important. क्यों मेरे को switch off this bloody phone?
no problem, sir.
ये I think I put an alarm somewhere and it is not.
Okay. Probably an afternoon nap alarm to wake up.
It says snoozing.
Yeah. So it's coming off every 10 minutes, sir. So, sir, you say, do you think Balochistan is the next game?
Balochistan is the game now.
Because it makes sense. If it's Bangladesh, which is Bay of Bengal, then it has to be Balochistan for the Arabian Sea.
With
Because
Gwadar
American
on
president,
one, you can't let
yeah,
Gwadar run by the Chinese forever. What will the Chinese protest, object, react? How will they react? Where will they react? Will they react in the Gulf, Arabian Sea, or will they react on the Pacific? Because they're not going to accept the handing over of Gwadar just like that.
what do you think is the future of Pakistan in such a scenario?
I think the future is very grim. At the moment, they have nothing to comment for themselves. Economically, law and order, religion, social upkeep, कुछ भी तो नहीं हो रहा है.
I personally say that it's 2 years. After that, you will not see Pakistan in the shape that it is.
Yes, some brave people, some other brave people also said the same thing to me. एक दो साल, 3 साल sir, बस. So then what happens?
They said, in doubt, I have maps ready. I can share it to them. we could be, we could be happy to
So you
put
don't
a.
have that. That's all right. Good for you.
So, but in such a scenario, what we realize is that the Indian subcontinent itself is going to go through a rough time, right? And in around India, we may be a a stable ship in the middle of a very, 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 very tumultuous, very, very
Yeah.
turbulent ocean. And we've been able to maintain that, and that's really commendable on the leadership today, that they've been able to keep the country together and keep minor issues here and there, this protest, that protest, we all know how that happens, but generally speaking, the country is strong, it's stable, and it's growing really fast in spite of what's happening around the world and in the neighborhood. If I may ask you, what do you characterize as the main root cause or the root plan of something like this to go forward? And is this viable going forward in the future as well, looking at the global order which is going to change?
I think it is viable because you got you have to look at new markets, new areas to operate. And Africa and Latin America is where we should be going. If you want to look really ahead. Europe will remain with the Americans. They will, whatever it is. There may be a few arrangements, deals, military deals, and so on and so forth. But this is where you have to go. Ideally, I don't think it'll ever happen. But you have a situation where the Russians and the Indians and the Chinese get together.
It's only if, I'm sorry to use the word, that's only if Chinese get their head out of their backside, sir.
Your words, not mine.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this too many times because
that is probably a fear. BRICS comes up and they get worked up.
Yep.
If the BRICS expands, they get even more worked up. Because NATO is everything. And NATO can't help Ukraine beyond a point. It can help them keep on dying, but nothing else. So we will continue to grow. We have enough of a consumer market in India. We have enough requirement for us. We don't have to look for markets really to sell all our goods. Many of them can be consumed here. There are many which we can export. That's a separate thing. But if we can get our economy sorted out properly, if we can get our infrastructure in position and your technology, if you lose out, and you must build your own systems. You
That's true.
can't borrow a system and say, I become an economist, a scientist. No. You have to develop something of your own system meant for yourselves. सारा डेटा तो उनके पास है आपका. Everything is gone there. We look on their input to our general knowledge. Everything comes on Google. So this thing can be manipulated. No? Your freedom on these various social media can also be manipulated and moderated or just ignored. So we have to develop our own voice. We must have something that everybody stands up and listens to.
I love this one term that somebody's come up here, which actually it says algorithmic sovereignty.
Yes, absolutely right. That's what we have to have. Can't be dependent, you could be food dependent on PL480. That was a bygone era, a horrible period. But now, when technology is king, if technology is king and you're not able to master it, then you are going to fall back. We'll miss out the technology revolution if you don't start now.
True. That's why we see all the focus on
If you don't
semiconductors.
do that, then we won't make it.
True, true, true. So,
That is
but one of the things that you see about China is India needs to kind of find a high point on China, a kind of, militarily, yeah, China is not going to kind of do anything. Now we know there is a lot of deterrence which has been created and stuff, and it's something that we know that the Chinese will not go that direction, and that's pretty clear now. They don't have the capacity to it. Plus, I don't think it's that big a thing for them to kind of beat India military. It will not work.
Yeah. No, I
But
don't
we
think
need
they
to,
want to take a risk either.
yeah, we need to kind of up the ante as well with China as well. What would you kind of recommend to the Indian government? Which pathway or which direction should we take to create that pressure on China?
Frankly, I really don't know which area is the best area to operate. What would hurt them the most? What would they want to preserve the most?
Tibet?
Tibet. So do we play Tibet? Why didn't we ever play Tibet properly? Because we handed it over, on a
Platter.
platter. So now to take it back is going to be troublesome because they can create trouble for you in the northeast.
Hmm.
So you got to balance that out. Apart from Tibet, Tibet is our boundary. It's not China really. We
Obviously,
always
yes.
had a boundary with Tibet, not with China. So how do we make China look at us with a little more, not fear, but feel the need that they need to talk to us seriously, not just be pushing it back. I think the control of the seas,
Hmm.
that make your naval supremacy supreme in the Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal, and this Arabian Sea together. We have a huge coastline to defend. Besides that, we should be the masters of the sea there. Already, the Chinese are looking at the Arctic as an alternative route.
Yeah. So are we?
We- So we should have to be thinking on those lines as well. How to counter, how to keep China dependent on us in some way.
Mhm. Minister Jaishankar said something really interesting the other day. Somebody asked him about multilateralism, right? He said, yeah, multilateralism, plurilateralism, all that he said. But he said there's one term that he used he's never used before. He said multi-vector diplomacy.
Multi.
Is that multi-vector diplomacy,
Okay.
multi-directional diplomacy? How do you think that will impact the future of the global order? Because at the end of it, one thing we know for a fact is that the global order going forward cannot be made without India being a major point in it.
Yeah.
Henry Kissinger, before he died, I think he spoke the truth for once when he said that India will be the fulcrum of the new global order.
Mm.
This is what
No, no.
he said when he came to India, and he's said it in other forums as well.
Hmm.
How do you think that is going to shape up, and how do you think that new order is going to shape out with India being there, sir?
I think we have to play it ourselves. We have to. It depends on us how we play it. And
Mhm.
I also feel that we shouldn't. Well, we should stand firm on on the, our positions. We need not be too. We need not talk tom tom all the time.
True.
We are that. Follow Deng's advice. Play it in low key to begin with.
Hide your
So
strength, bide your time. Yes, sir.
bide your time, and it will come. Just keep growing economically, and it will come. You have wealth, you have power, you have everything. Power means more wealth. More wealth means more power in all aspects of power: military, information, technology. So we have to get there first. Just that is the concentration, and not be seen fighting wars or taking on assets which are not assets. But I don't also see the Pakistan is trying to attack us. They've tried everything, and I don't think anything has worked. So beyond a little bit of Lashkar-e-Taiba fellows coming in, I I personally think that era is over. Try to करेंगे,
Absolutely.
try to करेंगे वो लोग. Chinese will not want to risk a battle with us where they end up with a bloody nose. They may not win, we may not win, but if they get a bloody nose, their standing in Asia will go down if they're not able to have their way militarily within them. So I don't think they'll risk that. Or maybe I'm too optimistic about Chinese intentions.
Well, sir, I don't know. I mean, I do kind of claim to be a China watcher, and that's for the people to decide. But I don't think they have that, because the way Xi Jinping is being positioned in China today, all his policies have been said, no, 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 just keep this on the side. Let's focus on this. I feel that his wings have been like just
Clipped.
clipped.
हो सकता है, because I don't know either whether that is happening there. It's otherwise a very tightly controlled, unreal country.
Yeah.
And they work like this. And mind you, I don't think the average Chinese is so concerned about freedom of speech.
Hmm.
Not in the Western sense of liberalism and that kind of thing. I don't think so. The emperor has always been tyrannical emperor. It has been his word is law. These days, it's Emperor Xi Jinping. His, his surrounders, people surrounding him may have clipped his wings, made him a little less of an emperor, but that's the concept, I think. That he is the boss. So we do as we are told. It's hierarchical also, it's there in the family also. It comes down generations. So I don't know whether teenagers in China have the same kind of freedom as, let's say, even in India,
Mhm.
because they go to earn their social, uh, what is that, social behavior points?
Yeah, social credit score, sir.
OI. So social credit score, where do you place them? Obedient robots or inconvenient assets?
Well, there's a lot of resistance to that as well, sir. You've got something called the Bailan, which is like let it rot. Chinese kids today are saying just my parents made enough money. I have no one to marry. I have my smartphone. I'm going to play games all day and let it rot. Let my life rot. What difference does it make to me?
Right? Maybe. Maybe
I'd
that's
like to ask you about the US elections and how should India formulate its policy going forward? That's the last question. And after that, guys, please send in your questions. There's few here, few more. It's not every time you get to interact with people, luminaries, if I may, like Mr. Vikram Sood. So please ask your questions and we'll take up a few after Sir's answer. What do you think, firstly, is going to happen in the American elections? Right? Will it become
it.
peaceful? As Mr. Modi very clearly said in the Summit of the Future, we just had the world's largest elections peacefully.
Yeah.
That was a burn. He cut
Yeah.
them up, put some mirchi masala there, right there. And how do you think American politics will reshape itself looking at Kamala or Trump for that matter? And
I,
finally, our policy towards that.
I get the feeling that the Americans are getting very restless.
Hmm.
There's too much of this wokeism and this liberties on the street, violence on the streets, the anger about the immigration illegals coming in. So you have now got the right mixture for violence, politically or socially. I don't know. But I think it's going to be one of the most tricky elections America has ever had.
Wow.
I don't know who's going to win. One day it is Trump, the other day it is this lady, Kamala Harris. Um,
Kamala, I
Harris.
don't know.
I don't know कमला है कि कमाला है कौन आएगा पता नहीं.
उसके ऊपर भी debate है because it's a split
But
personality.
does it matter to us, yeah?
Oh.
Which country has been our friend in the sense of being a friend that stands by you? You go back to history, go back to Nixon's time, 71, 72.
Hmm. Fair point.
उसके बाद nuclear, the sanctions. Where did they unequivocally support us?
Never.
Never. Now, which country has never used a sanction against you, never voted
Fra-
against you?
France and Russia.
France and Russia. So, in key to foreign policy, Americans' key, to my mind, it runs on two parallel rail tracks. Inside that, you shift a bit to the left or a bit to the right, but the overall goal of preserving American interest as defined by the president of the day will continue, or by the deep state for the president to say whatever he has to say is defines their goal. We have to then make use of that, make use of the strength of the bigger guy to make it swing
Mhm.
out. You know, if they like you, they will lionize you. If they have their interest here, they will lionize you. They have neither, they will either ignore you or condemn you. So you have to be liked by them. And if you have to be liked by them, then you have to like yourself more before you get being liked by them. Our tendency in the past has been to seek adulation from the West, approbation from the West. वो छोटा सा कहीं के इनाम किसी को मिल जाएगा उसको we will play it up. Well, that same person has got a Padma Vibhushan, we ignore that. So we have to learn that America has been a big power. It is still perhaps the strongest power on earth and has had the biggest empire without actually colonizing the people, only colonizing the systems throughout. So they are going to do their utmost to remain where they are. And whoever they think will help them do that in the next 4 years will win.
But
Or they will.
the problem with America is if they're going in one direction, one can okay, fine, figure it out. But I really don't know which direction they're trying to even go. They hate nationalism. They hate any guy with a majority. So Keir Starmer came up with a majority. They started calling him an arrogant autocrat and I don't know dictator and this and that. This is the New York Times, and you
There's
wonder,
only
yeah,
one nationalism in the world, yeah. That's American nationalism. और तो कोई है ही नहीं. Only, I mean, if I say I'm a Hindu, I become a Hindu chauvinist.
fascist.
Fascist हो जाता. Huh? If I say I want to fly my flag, I'm an Indian first. Oh, you're a nationalist.
Hmm.
So it's a situation they've put themselves into because the world has allowed them. Look, the maximum number of deaths in the Second World War were Russians,
Yep, 36 million.
and the Americans lost only 2% of the total losses.
Yes.
Russians lost 78 or 87%. Maybe the figures are wrong. But what did the Soviets get at the end of the day? Because America was ruling them. And they made sure they ruled. What happens tomorrow if the Arab world decides to break ranks? Okay, we'll tie up with the Chinese, they'll get some more oil with them, we'll deal in yuan and so on and so forth. It makes a lot of difference to the American economy. The petrodollar ही नहीं चलेगा तो क्या चलेगा? Iraq was an enemy because
You want to
Saddam
deal in the euro.
I'll sell it in euros. So mission was accomplished when this thing changed. So
Wow. Hmm.
there's no real, there's no way I can say that Trump ही जीतेगा जी या यही जीतेगी. And their systems are so convoluted when you do the counting of votes and the seats. They have no bearing on each other. They may be totally askew. Get more states, but you get fewer votes. And you're still the president.
Interesting. Guys, let's please like the video, subscribe, and let's get into some questions. And most importantly, share this. Right? I know everybody's busy eating jalebis today, but jalebi is good. It's don't eat too much. You'll all get sugar. So chill on the jalebis. Geopolitics is here to stay, guys. Remember that these elections will come and go. And if you guys saw my show yesterday, I very clearly said never take anything for granted. Never. In politics or in geopolitics, everything is a shade of gray. right?
Yeah.
Don't ever, ever, ever bet on these things. It's always a shade of gray because it involves too many people and it involves too many factors that we sitting at home, sitting on our mobiles, probably don't realize. And that's why geopolitics needs to be discussed so much because the factors are even larger. So that's just, a few 100 million people in one election in India. You can imagine there's 8 billion people around the world that you're talking about when you're talking geopolitics. So please like, subscribe, and of course, yes, you guys can contribute towards this channel using the QR code or PayPal or super stickers, super chats. G man, I know all is fair in love and politics. I'll add war into it as well. Priyank Thakurji, thank you so much. Update and theme of your next book, sir, if you're allowed to speak.
Update on my book, it's still with the publishers.
It's coming out by when, sir?
Maybe next year.
Next year. That's too long.
Yeah, I know.
Divakarji, thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat to you as well. Kapil Kumarji, thank you. You say, is petrodollar being replaced by the tech dollar?
I frankly don't know what tech dollar would be looking like. What does it mean? Does it mean that it'll exclude everybody who doesn't have the ability to have tech dollars?
We have the biggest data hub in the world coming up in India. I've always said that data is equal to the new oil, right? So if
Yeah.
you control the data, you control quite a lot of what you can do. I'm not saying you control the world, that's not possible. But if you get the data in your country today, which is what you're trying to do, one of the largest data hubs in the world, Bangalore, Pune,
Hmm.
Noida, Hyderabad, they're coming up. It's building. Looks promising.
Unless you control your own data, you're not going to control anything
Yeah.
else.
And Modi ji, for that matter, I must say, has been, the recent tech the CEOs meeting were all tech, all tech guys.
Yeah.
He doesn't meet anybody else. He said, yeah, you guys sit down, let's talk. And he spoke to some very interesting people. He's pretty good friends with Naval Ravikant, the upcoming, you know, uh, big boy in terms of Palantir chaps, Peter Thiel, Naval Ravikant, and all these guys. So it's
No,
interesting.
tech is the only way we can do it, and they will put archanes in your way.
Like the engine, sir,
Hmm?
like the GE 404 engine.
Huh? Those kinds of. Unless you
So,
buy something from me, I won't give you this.
Sarvani ji says, sir, do you think one of the reasons USA is not able to control the world is because their tech innovation got stalled or slowed down, which altered the dependency factor on the USA with the rest of the world and vice versa?
There's a lot to be said for that. That once technology becomes democratized, everybody has access. Then you do your own thing with it. You're not dependent on 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 the United States to that extent. And therefore, once that dependency goes, you have become more independent. You have become more self-reliant, and you naturally have your own opinion on that. So the old habit of saying, yes, you're right, and I'll do as you tell me to do is fading away. And there's a technology which has actually come from the United States to the rest of the world. Now it is going back to them. It's hitting them back. It is. They shared it. They shared all that wonderful technology, and everybody else has taken advantage of it.
Funnily speaking, sir, I say this multiple times that people criticize YouTube, people criticize Facebook and stuff like that. Here are we sitting here in India using their technology
Yeah,
against them,
and telling them where to get off.
and I'm exposing their agendas on their own technology.
Yes,
So
yeah, they invented all this.
yep.
Up to a point, it was all their talk. They could tell you everything, and we all believed them. Remember the days of the BBC and CNN? My father used to say, unless the BBC has said it, I don't believe it. Now we know what BBC used to tell us. So that's how this technology has evolved in the favor of for the other.
By the way, BBC viewership is from Nigeria,
Huh?
Kenya. Mozambique. I
uh,
have documents to prove that. So their inflated kind of positioning in the world
mm,
is Nigeria, Kenya, Mozambique, Uganda, these countries, and we know what is happening there. Cambodia, by the way, in the in the Southeast
yeah.
Asian. So they're buying views, they're buying viewership. I have proof, documentary proof of that. It's amazing. I mean, and they tout themselves to be the God's next child.
Yeah, yeah.
Arunavio, thank you so much. You say, sir, Park will be a constant irritant in India's progress. The West will always keep it at the brink of failure. For several years, we heard it will fail, but it's on a simmer, not on a boil. Your view?
I think you are very correct in this, that it has been propped up by the West. It will remain like that for as long as it takes. Just don't let it boil over. Just let it boil, simmer, because it's a good counter to India. Keeps you tied down with it. How many of our forces, our economy got tied up with protecting your western borders, protecting your security systems, and so on and so forth inside India. Counterterrorism is an expensive game.
It is.
And so it was okay for they never, the condemnation of terror created by Pakistan by the West was always lukewarm or non-existent. When we were fighting the terror in Kashmir in the 90s, I remember, all we had from the Clinton administration was that we were violating human rights. Till Abu Ghraib happened.
That's a. I must say, so you're I now
So
know where Mr. Jaishankar gets his wittiness from because there's so many of you with the same paradigm. I love the one where he said, somebody asked him, right, would you like to have dinner with Kamala Harris or no, George Soros or Kim Jong Un? And he turns around and says, no, it's Navratri, I'm fasting. Okay, yaar,
that's fun.
that's a solid one.
We needed a foreign minister like him.
Yeah, we did. Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And about Pakistan was, you should see the reactions there. Pakistanis are saying, यार ये तो अमेरिका को नहीं छोड़ता, ये यहाँ पर
Yeah.
आके हमारी पैंटे उतारेगा.
That's true. Quite possible.
They're actually saying that, sir, on media. They are saying it on media that, boss, what the hell?
बुलाओ उसको.
क्यों बुलाया इसको? ये यहाँ पर आके कुछ बोलेगा. Oh, भाई. And Imran Khan party members come around and say, we would invite Mr. Jaishankar to come to KPK and give us address the crowd. Oh God. And then on top of all this stuff, Mr. Jaishankar puts an icing on the cake, says, I'm going there. I'm going to be civil and courteous. I'm going there for a purpose.
I won't talk about any bilateral matters.
Jeez. We needed somebody like that. You're absolutely right, sir.
Absolutely. Trust the right man.
But, sir, trust me, witticism is something that India lacked till now. And I'm saying this with all. Yeah.
Sense of humor. We can't laugh at ourselves. We must learn to laugh at ourselves.
Well said, sir. Well said. I keep saying this. Let people keep cracking jokes on India. What difference will it make?
Yeah, it's okay. We can do it with them.
Yeah.
We do it on ourselves. Sometimes we do. We do make fun of ourselves. But our political masters, our civil servants, we all must learn to be able to laugh at ourselves. Remember that?
Absolutely.
Yes, Prime Minister, yes, Minister, how amazingly.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
We need to get a little less serious about,
Steam out hota hai, acha rehta hai.
Yeah. That's true, sir. Rohit Saab says, what will you suggest to the present government of India? 3 points, sir. Three major points.
Three major points.
Anything.
Keep doing what you're doing and do it well. They're on the right track. Don't falter in any of the projects that you've taken up.
Wow.
Whether
Maitri
it's,
says, sorry.
let's say,
She says,
political, economic, or military, whatever.
yeah, she says, I have serious doubts that this war will explode to the whole Middle East or West Asia, like Saudi and UAE seems least interested. Qatar is nothing more than a dalal. Iraq and Syria are already done.
Nice summing up of the whole thing. It's all going to be in a shambles now. Maybe those who didn't take part in it, maybe the Egyptians or maybe the Israelis or maybe the Jordanians would probably get away with it. But I don't know how the Syrians or the Iraqis or the Iranians are going to get out of it. Lebanon,
Shankar ji says, Namaste, Sood sir and Aadi. Namaste ji. Dr. Jaishankar said in the Asia Society talk that we see a return of history. The rise of Bharat and Israel is a boost to the natives worldwide. What could be their role in the future?
let's get there first. Let's not assign ourselves a role just now, because when we get to a place you want to get to, we don't know what the world will look like. Will it be what it is today, or will it look different? There will be others claiming possession. You can't rule out China, you can't rule out Brazil, maybe, you can't rule out Indonesia. These are big countries with assets and resources. And Africa is a nation that we really haven't considered seriously enough. We have to consider Africa as a huge continent, the huge resources, and we ought to be able to have a place there.
Interesting. Sarita ji says, I think USA should not be called a democracy but an autocratic dictatorship. Strong words.
Tell them that, please. No, the democracy is a little different. I mean, it's freedom of speech and all that is, banded around to us. But look at the way they keep their own people under surveillance. 17 intelligence agencies. All your mail is watched, loaded, downloaded. Whether they do anything with that, I don't care, but it is available to somebody else. Now with technology, it is only going to get worse. How much they can pry into your affairs and keep records. But as it is, they know from Google Maps will tell you where you're located today.
Yeah.
And how much time did I spend at Mr. Aadi house when I went there? How frequently I went there? The next stage is obvious. They'll put a microphone on you somewhere.
They have already, sir. Use your phone in an IR light in the middle of the night and see how many photographs it's. It's constantly clicking photographs to find your face. These face phones.
Yeah.
Every 2-3 seconds, it puts out something.
Yeah.
And in the night, they dump out almost 50 MB of data from each one of our phones. May it be an Android or whatever it is. We all know where it goes.
Yeah.
And there are experiments being done with this. People go into these dark rooms with UV and IR lights. And they just, in Ukraine, by the way, when they were watching people from the night vision, these smartphones used to get people killed because those flashes were continuously on their face. And the Russians would pick them out and shoot them, these Western mercenaries.
Okay.
Russians were told to carry these small little phones, and they have their cameras without, for whatever photography that they want to do for propaganda. But they would carry these small little old type phones for their communication. So they learned earlier on that when you switch on these night vision and you have these smartphones, that thing is trying to search for your face and it would keep flashing light on your face, which is not visible to the naked eye. And they would pick that out, find out where the guy is, and shoot them out.
And that's it.
Amazing. I mean, and it's like the pagers.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Pager.
It's like the pagers. It's crazy. Last word on the pagers, sir. As somebody who's worked in intelligence, how, I mean, were you surprised something like this happened?
I think I was impressed,
Yeah.
highly impressed, that you could think of this. Somebody thought of this, that it could be done. And somebody must have experimented at home on a pager. Then you create a pager like this. You run it as a whole thing as an int operation and give it to them. They buy it from you. So actually, Hezbollah paid to be killed, paid money to the Israelis to have themselves killed. It's a very astute, smart operation. And I think Mossad is really one of the finest. That's why I don't really think that their intelligence was so bad on October 7th.
And that's something to think about, which I'm going to ask you the next time we have a podcast. So thank you so much for your time,
Yes.
sir. It's always a pleasure.
Take
You know,
care.
intelligence is an interesting world, but it's seldom understood. And I think let's leave it at that. It's how it's supposed to be. Thank you so much for what you've
Thank
done,
you. Bye bye.
the
Take care.
knowledge, and the time that you spend with us. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.